herself because of the things that she used to do in the past. But when she had an encounter with Jesus, Jesus was able to shift her perspective. That perspective that she had of feeling an outcast, feeling a disgrace, the feeling of feeling unworthy, the perspective that she carried. When she encountered Jesus, Jesus was able to shift her shame to acceptance, to shift her doubt to faith, to shift her isolation to purpose. When she encountered Jesus, Jesus was able to change and to shift her perspectives. We really need perspective shifters in our lives, and we really need to invest in them. And in the list of your friends, the list of the people you call your friends, can you ask yourself, do I really have a genuine perspective shifter in the list of my friends? These are people who help us to change our negative perspectives to positive perspectives. Not only do you need a perspective shifter, but you're also called to be a perspective shifter in the life of someone. Perspective shifters. The second group of people as human beings that we really need to invest in are called the truth tellers. The truth tellers. As you're investing in social capital, make sure you invest in truth tellers. People who tell you nothing but the truth. A truth teller is someone who speaks honestly and candidly. A truth teller is someone who tells you the bitter truth without sugarcoating lies. A truth teller is someone who carries unfiltered honesty in their hearts. A truth teller is someone who shares their genuine thoughts and feelings. A truth teller. And it is good to ask yourself in the circle of your friends, do you really have a truth teller? A person who will face you and tell you nothing but the pure truth. A person who will not be afraid to tell you that this is wrong. A person who will not fear telling you don't go in that direction without fearing. A truth teller. We need friends who are truthful. We need to invest in relationships of people who are truth tellers. And a very biblical, practical example is found in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 20. The story of David and Jonathan. Jonathan used to tell David the truth. He'd come and tell him, my father is plotting to kill you. My father is plotting this and this. It was not easy for Jonathan to come and tell David the truth about the plots that his father King Saul had towards David. But because of the friendship that they had, Jonathan used to tell David nothing but the truth. My dear friends in the Lord, this morning, we really need truth tellers in our lives. In as much as we have perspective shifters, we also need people who will tell us their genuine truth. People who will tell us their genuine thoughts without fear. People who will tell us nothing but the truth, no matter how difficult it may be, and even no matter how challenging it may be. I also need truth tellers in my life. That group of people that we need are called the joy bringers. If there are people that we really need to invest in, are the joy bringers. The joy bringers are people who create a ripple effect of joy and positivity. The joy bringers are people who changes our sadness to happiness. The joy bringers are people, when they are around, the atmosphere changes. The joy bringers are people who are able to help us approach life with hope. The joy bringers. The joy bringers may not have solution to your problems, but they'll just say one thing. They'll crack one joke and you just laugh, you become happy and forget your challenges that you are going through. the joy bringers. These are people you cannot be serious with. You can never be serious in a situation where these people are around. They make you happy. They bring joy to you. You know, life is full of ups and downs. Life is full of challenges. And we really need people who will give us happiness. People who will make us happy. People who will make us happy. Philippians 4:4 says, happy, be happy. And again I say, be happy, be glad. So we need to be happy. At times we find ourselves in situations that are heartbreaking, situations that are very saddening. But when we have joy bringers in our lives, they make us feel happy. They bring joy to us. And we really need to invest in joy bringers. A very good practical biblical example is found in the book of Luke chapter 15. The gospel according to Luke 15, reading from verse 11 through 32. We read about the father of the prodigal son. I want you to remember how guilty the prodigal son was feeling because of all that he had done and the way he had wasted the money and the property and the resources that his father had given him. And when he came back to his senses, he decided to go back to his father. And I want you to see how his father brought joy in the life of the prodigal son. He hugged him, welcomed him back, and even threw a party of celebration for him. He brought joy in the life of his son. No matter how guilty the prodigal son was feeling, his father was a joy bringer in his life. He brought him joy back in his life. We really need joy bringers in our lives. And that is why God, he is the source of joy. And he gave us joy when he gave us his son Jesus to be born, to become man, so that he could die for the world. And that is why in 2 months' time we shall be singing, joy to the world, the Lord has come. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. We really need to invest in joy bringers. People who bring joy to us. Not only do we need joy bringers in our lives, but we also need to be joy bringers in the life of someone. The fourth group of people that we need in our lives, we need the listeners. The listeners are people who give us a shoulder to lean on. They are people who give us space so that we can express our emotions, so that we can express our feelings. Even though they may not be in a position to help us, they usually give us space and time so that we can be able to process our emotions and even express how we feel. Life is full of challenges. At times we go through a lot. And what we need is people who can be able to listen to us and understand us without judging us. Listeners are people who give us attention when we need it. Listeners are people who focus on what we are saying without interrupting or even without judging. The listeners are people who help us process emotions by providing a safe space to express ourselves. We need listeners. Even though they may not solve our issues, they usually give us space and time so that we can express ourselves. And that is why it is well put that a problem shared is halfway solved. And so we need people who we can share with what we are going through without judging us and even without interrupting us. We need the listeners. A very good practical biblical example is found in the book of Job chapter 2, reading from verse 11 through 13. And this is a very good example about Job's friends. Job's friends, when they heard what Job was going through, they were able to travel all the way. And the word of God says that when they came to Job's home and saw how he was suffering and the pain that he was going through, they stayed for 7 days without saying anything, just